Hey guys, Kyle the Death Knight right here, bringing you something a little different. It's not a review, but it's something that I think is long overdue because I realized this is something I probably should have done from the very beginning I started this channel, just to kind of give you guys an idea as to my whole tastes in anime and whatnot. But yeah, I'm here to give you guys my top 10 favorite shonen anime. This and the basis for this list is mainly going to be which is going to be based on my taste on both the anime and the manga. Like, when I'm doing this list, I'm taking both the anime and the manga into account. I'm not just taking one or the other. I'm going to be basing this list on both. But yeah, with that said, let's just go ahead and get right into it. This is my top 10 favorite shonen. Let's get started. Number 10, Black Clover. Now, Black Clover as a series is one that has a universally split fan base for one reason or another. People often coined it as being a Naruto ripoff, but I get a lot more of a fairy tale vibe from it. Hear me out. We all know the hatred fairy tale has gotten over the years for one obvious reason or another, whether it's the death fakeouts or bullshit nonsensical power-ups. Even the fans who like it have to admit there are problems. Me personally, I have the exact same problems as all of you, but I did like the setting, the colorful design work, and the wide variety of magic. To me, Black Clover takes the ideas of what was good about fairy tale, what little there was, but left out the bad, and in doing so they created what I think is a rather enjoyable series. A series that in a way I feel is necessary to bring respect back to the magic shonen genre, because while there are still those particular type of shonen out there that do have the that there are still magical shonen out there that actually have the that actually have garnered a lot of respect. I feel that it's that the magic shonen genre as a whole, it still took a pretty big hit with Hiro Mashima and Fairy Tail. So I feel whatever respect was lost with Fairy Tail, I feel it can be regained with something like Black Clover. So yeah, and that alone is and that honestly alone is enough in order for me to put Black Clover at my number 10 list. But yeah, let's. But enough about that one. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Number 9, Magi, Labyrinth of Magic. So don't get me wrong, I love Magi. It's one of my most engaging shonen manga out there. But that's just it. It's one of the most engaging manga. The anime, on the other hand, is okay for what it is, but it does skip a lot of details as well in its 50-episode run. On top of that, in terms of the anime, I do still enjoy it to a certain degree, but I'm also well aware of how the anime industry works, in the sense where when an anime sells big enough and makes the studio money, then that equates to getting a new season. But because the anime never really sold enough, the possibility of getting a new season past Kingdom of Magic is slim to none. And that's kind of where I'm on a stance in terms of Magi the Labyrinth of Magic, is that the manga is great. It's fascinating. It's an amazing read. But the problem is that we're not going to is that while the manga itself is going to have a complete and finished story, the anime is going to remain incomplete, and that's something that's always going to be nagging at the back of my brain, hence the reason why it's at number 9. Also, one thing I've kind of learned is from watching it again is that it does have that sort of main character focus syndrome where, yeah, I know the main character is supposed to be focused, but it's one of those things where the main characters are such a focus that sometimes I think that they forget to really make the secondary character stand out. Don't get me wrong, there are a few still secondary characters that definitely stand out, but I feel that there is that aside from a few small secondary characters, the main focus is on a little too much on the main cast, and then in that sense, not enough of the secondary characters get enough of a time to shine. So yeah, but there are still some amazing secondary characters in that. But it's for these reasons and more that I feel it had to be number 9, guys. Sorry for those who like it, but yeah, those are my thoughts on Magi as a series in general, both anime and manga. But yeah, let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Number 8, My Hero Academia. Now I know what you're thinking. What? You review this series and you don't even make it to the top 5? What's wrong with you? Well, yeah, and honestly, I still love My Hero Academia to death. It's got everything you would want in a great superhero anime and manga series. And more, hell, most of the reasons why it's even on this list is due to the vast amounts of creativity and diversity that Kohei Horikoshi brings to the series. Whether it's his characters, his backgrounds, everything about it is just a certain degree is just amazing. And to a certain degree, it's just refreshing to see someone like Izuku as the main character. Like I'm sure there are shonen that actually have making use of a character like Izuku, but I'm sure that someone like the characters like Izuku do actually exist in the shonen world. But for me it is a little more refreshing because I haven't seen a lot of characters like this where they just use their brains over just using nothing but luck, quick wits and brawn. And that's another thing is that I like how even though Izuku has this overpowered ability like One for All, it's still technically it doesn't even make him overpowered. He does have limitations as to how he can use it. Like it isn't just him like having, oh yeah, I have this power and now I can easily control it and fight whichever motherfucker comes my way. No, he actually still needs to use his brains in order to use his power. And even then, there are still some, as we've seen in the manga and the anime, there are some very drastic, very drastic effects in using his power. So yeah, I do like how that is a thing within the concept of the series. And what else can I say? Also, I very much like how the style and artwork of My Hero Academia it's very easy to compare to different comic book and superhero sources like Marvel, DC, and and Dark DC and all these other different all these Western sources of superhero media. And but yeah, I mean honestly, I think the only thing that prevents it from being higher on the list is despite being 143 chapters in, I still feel that there is still a very fresh series. The series is still very fresh, and it has many more opportunities to explore its world and its characters and just everything around the whole story itself. Story itself. So yeah, it is still to me it is still a very young series, and it can only get honestly from what I've seen so far, it can only get better from here though. Like it definitely explores things like heroism. What exactly is heroism? Villains aren't technically always black and white. Like I just love these concepts, and it's just these reasons and more why even though it's number 8, I still fucking love My Hero Academia. So yeah, we're moving on to the next one now, guys. Number 7, Seven Deadly Sins or Nanatsu no Taizai. Now, honestly, I had a really tough time figuring out where to place this one on the list, and at the end of the day, number 7 seemed like the safest bet because much like Magi, I find myself saying that while the manga is an amazing read, the anime is between that line of being decent to above average watch, and when I first watched it, I found it even suffered from similar pacing issues. Now, having said that, as someone who recently rewatched the anime, I will admit the pacing isn't as bad as the first time I watched it. And another thing I did notice is that, well, like I said before about Magi, Nanatsu no Taizai does better than Magi in having memorable characters for both the main and the secondary cast. Whereas, like I said with Magi again, they just had a memorable main cast, and aside from a few exceptions, the majority of the secondary cast kind of fell flat. But, and I know this is going to seem like great at this point, but I guess the biggest reason why is only it's only number 7 is because of no season 2. Now, the reason why I'm saying the reason we don't have a season 2 is a problem is because watching it again, I realized that a lot like Attack on Titan season 1, Seven Deadly Sins season 1 seems to have suffered from seems to have the entirety of season 1 of Natsu no Taizai Seven Deadly Sins. It was just one giant, like Attack on Titan season 1. It was just one whole one. It was one. It felt like one complete and giant prologue to of course what was to eventually come after. Like it didn't feel like a proper season, I guess. It just felt like one complete it just, like I said, it felt like an entire prologue. But yeah, for that reason and more, it just has me saying, honestly, please stop teasing us and just give us season 2 of the anime already. This would be a lot higher on the list if we did have season 2, but because we are still playing the waiting game for a new season of the anime, it is where it is on the list. And again, I wouldn't be feeling this way. Again, I wouldn't be feeling this way about the fact that we don't have a season 2 if again the Natsu no Taizai season 1 didn't feel like a giant prologue and setup for what was to come after. Like, yeah, I need that season 2. But yeah, guys, that's the reason why Nanatsu no Taizai is on this, and let's move on. Number 6. Assassination Classroom. Where in the hell did this idea come from? No, really, I genuinely want to know. Because this series was just so strange, so wacky, it's so heartfelt and so action-packed, all rolled into one, that half the time I genuinely ask myself 2 questions. What the fuck was the mangaka smoking, and how the fuck did he make this whole concept of students killing an octopus like tentacle monster work? Seriously, how did he make this work? To be honest, I don't know and don't care, because we got one hell of an awesome and unique series out of it. Now, the one thing you might be asking is why this one is higher than Magi and Seven Deadly Sins when it suffers from the same problem of skipping material. Well, that's the odd thing. When I watched the anime for the first time, I never got that pacing rushed. It felt like it had just the right amount of pacing. Not too fast, but not too slow either. I felt that for the majority of the time, Magi and Nanatsu no Taizai did have that habit of maybe rushing a little too fast, but here it did feel like the pacing was just right. And even after reading the manga, that never really changed, and maybe a good chunk of the reason for that is that the stuff that was lost didn't really affect the overall pacing of the story in a major way. I mean, it did, of course. Now, the one downside is that the whole series, whether you're talking anime or manga, is that it did feel a lot like a lot of the students were not necessarily sidelined, but they were just kind of there and didn't get the proper development they needed. Like, for instance, there were a lot of students that like a lot of the times it felt like it was focusing on of course our main character who was Nagisa and of course our main man Karma. But it did feel like the focus was on those two specifically, but never really on any of the other ones too much. Like, other than, yeah, but it did seem like it was focused on those two a lot, and maybe not enough on the other guys. But nevertheless, Assassination Classroom still stands out as being a very interesting series that deserves the number 6 spot at the very least for no other reason than Koro Sensei. I don't need to say anything beyond that, do I? But yeah, Assassination Classroom, you deserve your spot at number 6. Moving on to number 5. Number 5. One Piece. So yeah, One Piece made it to the top 5, and honestly, guys, if not for the manga, this would be much lower. Probably for show with Seven Deadly Sins, because I'm not blind. I am fully aware the second half of the anime has many problems off-model artwork, repetitive themes of animation, to slow pacing, but even then, like out of those three things, the only thing that bugs me is the slow pacing. Well, everything else just kind of seems like a footnote to me. Also, the second half of the anime might be very slow, but I do keep a single thought in the back of my brain that helps me get through it, which is for every slow moment in One Piece, there's a holy shit insane moment that's waiting right around the corner. And that's kind of what keeps me coming back. Um granted, the One Piece anime, I'm not gonna lie, of course there are still those problems I mentioned. And like looking at it objectively, part of me kind of wishes that I know it's one of the biggest moneymakers in Japan, but part of me wishes that the animation studio in charge, I think it's to a animation. I wish they would. I wish they would just give. I wish they would give One Piece a break. I wish they'd go on like a month or a year long hiatus in order to give Oda a lot more space and room in order to work on the manga even before work on the manga, and then in that scenario they wouldn't be able to. They wouldn't need to worry about the slow pacing or anything like that. I'm sure that they probably still like they probably still do pacing out with like filler and whatnot. I mean, filler in a way it can work both ways, in which it can be used to space out a manga and anime series, but it's also used just kind of to extend it and make more money. So in that sense, I guess it wouldn't work, but still, I wish they would get. I wish that one of these days it would wise up and just kind of give One Piece a break and let Oda do his work in order to give them more space and more content to work with. Honestly, also, is there really even a point to talking about how great the manga is? Now, I won't lie, part of me does often wonder if it's some corporate interference going on behind the scenes. Is the reason why One Piece has retained number one. But even then, there wasn't the. But even if there wasn't, the manga still has proven time and time again that it does deserve the number one spot. Because in either case, whether you're talking about the anime or the manga, One Piece is definitely it's an example of good and quality storytelling in the sense where, okay, yes, it is slow and it does take its time, but that's only because Oda wants to make sure he's covered all the plot points and make sure nothing is left, and he covers all the plot points that are necessary to the overall story, which in One Piece's case is basically everything. Like Oda has done a story where everything in the story matters. Like nothing, not a single plot point is left out. I mean, I guess if you wanted to argue if there's one part of the story that hasn't really come much into play anymore is the Floxy arc, but really that's its only hiccup, honestly. Like everything else has come beautifully into play. Everything in the story has a point. So yeah, and these reasons and more, it's why One Piece is at number 5, guys. But yeah, let's move on to number 4. 4. Attack on Titan. So, I'm not gonna lie, when I first heard of Attack on Titan, there was already a major amount of hype behind it, but surprisingly, I was not one to give into the hype, and for the longest time, I avoided it. But then, something happened. Both my stepbrother and my best friend from high school both told me to check it out, and so I gave in, watched the first episode, and from then on, I was honestly hooked, and I couldn't tell you what it was, whether it was the dark and grim atmosphere, the psychological aspect, or just the straight up amazing animation. But something about it was just enjoyable to watch. And after finishing the first season, I was clamoring for for I guess the season two, which scores net, which scores which is now available to watch, of course. But back then when season two hadn't even aired or was in production yet, I was clamoring for of course that season two, which I of course reviewed now. But yeah, I was in hype for season two at that time, and for the longest time I was of course waiting. I was in a slump waiting for it, and I guess waiting for the next season until maybe about a year after watching the first season that I decided to start reading the manga, and that turned out to be just as enjoyable a read as watching the anime. But with amazing plot points and elements to the story that made it even better. Now, granted, looking back on the anime now, on the anime now, I do realize that the first season may not have while the second season was amazing, the first season may not have been as good as I thought it was because it's like I said in my Nanatsu no Taizai when I on numbers on Nanatsu no Taizai is that it was just sort of a whole it was that whole situation of it being just one whole giant ass prologue to from the rest of the series. Like I realized that they compared to season one didn't really do a whole lot other than give us the whole setup of the world and whatnot, which is important. But at the same time, it does realize that season two was definitely a lot better than season one, of course. Um, another couple downsides I really realized actually from Attack on Titan in general, honestly, is that over time, after seeing all these other manga and series, I realized this whole humans versus monsters in an apocalyptic world type story. It was nothing new, and it had been many different times before. But I, and to be honest with you, if I'd watched or read any of those stories first, I probably would have put those on this part of this on this list. Any of those Shonen type stories on this, I would have probably put it on this part of the list rather than on Attack on Titan. To be honest with you, but in a way, I'm still glad I watched Attack on Titan first because it's kind of like a first watch experience, and as in a first watch experience, Attack on Titan was a really enjoyable one. Now, but then the other issue I guess I had is Aaron. Now, Aaron himself as a character isn't too bad to me. He can get a little annoying at times, but what did kind of break the camel's back for me is that over time it was Aaron's whole what the series called the Titan Shifter abilities. Aaron's whole Titan Shifter abilities at that point it started to realize, okay, that they're going with that whole shonen trope now of the of the main character just scrapping any previous any skills or abilities he had obtained recently and just going for the one almighty skill. Like the problem with Aaron's Titan Shifter abilities, it completely eliminated the fact of using his omnidirectional gear. After he gained the powers of a Titan, the omnidirectional gear seemed like an afterthought. Like he rarely ever uses that ever again anymore. But yeah, that is just the other downside I have about the series. But other than that, the series as a whole, for what it is as an apocalyptic type story, it is still I'd say a pretty good watch on it, pretty good watch and a very entertaining rate. And I guess one other thing that's kept me going as to why this series is number so high on the list is that unlike most series where I just kind of watch alone or whatnot, I have actually been watching. I've been watching and reading the series, and I'm discussing all this stuff with like I said, my best friend and my best friend from high school, Palmer, and my stepbrother Corey were the ones who introduced me, who told me, hey, check out this series. And it's not a discussion with Corey per se, but it's a discussion with my best friend Palmer that like us discussing this series back and forth has actually increased its enjoyment for me, honestly. But yeah, just all these elements combined, it does make me realize that it is a lot more enjoyable than I thought, even with its problems. But yeah, guys, that's number four. Let's go ahead and but yeah, guys, that's the reasons why this is on number four. Let's go ahead and move on to number three. Number three, Hunter x Hunter or Hunter x Hunter. And now we move on to number three, which is the fan-loved Yoshihiro Togashi series, Hunter x Hunter. And is it as hyped as everyone says? Yes, but I think I like it for maybe a slightly different reason than most. You see, the one thing that this series does right is it creates the adventure through the ideas and concepts within the story. Take the profession of being a hunter, for example. One could make the very real argument that hunters in the story are basically the representation of modern day explorers, and that of modern day explorers who we know from our own from our own perceptions are natural thrill seekers and adventurers. And when you look at it like that, the series has almost a sort of cinematic quality that could be compared to all the great adventure movies out there, like the trilogy of in 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 Indiana Jones, and all these other great adventure award-winning adventure movies. Honestly, but geez, with the high praise like this, why isn't it number one? Well, there are some personal issues I have with the series, and believe it or not, it's technically not to do with Tagashi's hiatus, but at the same time, it is. Um, the main issue I have is that just like Magi, I feel it's one of those times where I have a very I have every confidence in the manga being finished. I do believe that despite all the hiatuses, that Yoshihiro Tagashi will in fact finish the manga. But I fear that the anime will never return, and if it does, it'll probably just start from the very beginning again. I know this is problem is, like I said, I know the problem is kind of connected to Takashi's hiatuses, but well, it's one of those things where I can kind of where I'm not really mad at Takashi's hiatuses because I can kind of understand why he's making them, why he does them, and if you want to know the full on reason why I'm so forgiving of Takashi's hiatuses, well, join me over at number two, guys. Number two, Yu Hakusho. Now, Yu Hakusho. Now, honestly, people are probably going to start asking why I like this one over Hunter x Hunter, and the answer is pretty simple. Yusuke fucking Urameshi as the main character. Don't get me wrong, I love Gon, but looking at it from an objective standpoint in the time period that Yu Hakusho came out, it made me realize what kind of a risk Yusuke was as a character. You see, in most shonen protagonist cases nowadays, you see the main character is considered an outcast by society and wants to prove them wrong by doing something grand and epic to stand out and being considered a hero. But in Yusuke's case, it's kind of backwards in the sense where he's placed in the position of a street punk by society, but he doesn't give a fuck about proving anything to anyone. He just has the mentality of, look, this is me, accept it, or get the hell out of my face. And I am aware that many other anime have started using this character model a little more, but for the time, this was kind of awesome to see, especially considering it was Yusuke's rebellious nature and love for getting into trouble that attracted people to him in the first place. So it was such a thing where what many people consider a bit of a detrimental quality ended up being the one that made him that ended up giving him a lot of allies, a lot of praise, and a lot of friend, and just giving him a lot of friendships. Honestly, so it is interesting to see how Takashi was able to twist that around and make it a good thing. But at this point, I should probably address the elephant in the room, which is what I addressed in the Hunter x Hunter part of this video, which is why exactly I can forgive Tagashi's hiatuses. Now, the main reason is because, well, Yu Hakusho is the core reason, guys, to start off with. You see, for those who aren't aware, Tagashi came out a while back and stated that drawing Yu Hakusho, it physically and mentally broke him. But despite that, he still kept going because he knew he wanted to finish what he started. It's honestly a classic case of underestimating the workload that comes with the job of being a big time of being a writer or comic maker of any kind, honestly. But I because of that, I at the same time, like, it's one of those things where I hold nothing but respect for him. But at this respect for him wanting to continue doing that despite the pain he had endured along the way. But at the same time, it's one where nowadays I feel a little guilty of watching and enjoying Yu Yu Hakusho because, again, even though it's a series that brought us so much enjoyment, on the flip side, it's one that brought Tagashi a lot of pain, guys. So, like, when you really think about it, it's actually funny, but in a way we could kind of think of what happened to Ryzen in Yu Yu Hakusho in a way, if you think about it, what exactly happened to Ryzen in Yu Yu Hakusho, we could kind of in a way theorize that what Ryzen was going through is kind of similar to it's kind of similar to what he himself what to 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 Kakashi himself was going through. So yeah, it's actually kind of insane when you really think about it that way. But but yeah, like it's one of those series that is still very enjoyable for what it is. But when you really look at it, it's like, yo, that's kind of insane. And if you guys want the full story, then go to whatever search engine you use, Google Firefox or Safari or whatever, and go to Yu Yu Hakusho. Looking back on failure. Go to your search engine and type out Yu Yu Hakusho, looking back on failure, and you'll get the full on details of what exactly he was thinking at the time he was doing Yu Yu Hakusho. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I have for number 2. And yeah, let's move on to number 1. The final one, guys. Hope you're ready for this one. And my number 1 top favorite shonen is Full Metal Alchemist. All the variations. That's right, guys. If the shirt wasn't a fucking dead giveaway, then I don't know how you guys couldn't have guessed this one. But yes, Full Metal Alchemist, all variations. Doesn't matter which one you're talking about. The 2003 series, manga, Brotherhood, whatever. Full Metal Alchemist to me is just a perfectly told, not even anime, but just story in general. It just has this perfect balance of memorable characters, engaging action, an expansive world that lends itself to a very unique adventure, honestly, and even to a certain degree, a lot of intrigue to the story that honestly, like, it doesn't matter how many times I watch this series, to be honest with you, I always find myself with some kind of intrigue. I'm always find myself kind of intrigued, but by every angle, intrigued and engaged in every angle of the story that of course presents itself. Even though I've seen it like a million times, and I'm sure even though I've seen it a million times, I always find myself invested in just the characters, the world, the stories, everything about it has just such an intrigue and a feel to it that just has me engaged every single time, no matter how many times I watch it. And I think if I'll say that thing like I'll probably feel the same way. I've felt that way like 100 times watching it. I'm sure I'll feel that 100 times more watching it, to be honest with you. And now, one thing I will say is that over the past couple of years, I've heard the occasional comment that says it's overhyped. And while that may be true, that doesn't mean it's bad, or if anything, I thoroughly believe that it's bad or anything. Like people can say something is overhyped, but I don't think you can really say whether something is overhyped I don't think you can really say say yourself that something is overhyped until you've actually experienced the story for yourself and then make that judgment of whether or not it's overhyped. Because to me, whether it's the whether it's the characters, the engaging action, whatever it is about this series, I thoroughly believe that the FMA franchise as a whole, no matter which version we're talking about here, is going to be right up there with Dragon Ball Z and many other series that will stand the test of time and continue to be an amazing and memorable story long after we're dead. Like, even after I've died, all of you have died. Like, I think Full Metal Alchemist is going to be one of those stories that just stands the test of time and just won't wear or tear. It'll always have its fans. It'll always be memorable. So, it'll always be a memorable experience for anyone who chooses to watch it. Yeah, guys, that's pretty much my whole. It's pretty much my whole list of my top 10 favorite shonen anime. What did you guys think? What is your particular top 10 list? Is Full Metal also your number 1, or is it something else? Just leave down in the comment section below with what your top 10 anime are, or shonen or seinen or just anime in general. Honestly, leave down in the comment section below what your top 10 shonen are. And But yeah, guys, that's my top 10. That's my top ten list of my favorite shonen anime. Death Knight of Anime. Signing off. See you later, guys. I hope this. I hope this. I hope this gives you guys I hope this gives you guys a bit of an idea as to what my particular tastes are and what kind of an anime fan I am. But yeah, guys, that's my list. I'll see you later.